Latin America Today notes. These are the last section of notes for Unit 3. You guys will be taking your test on Thursday. So I just want to go over these notes with you guys. And this is a pretty important section of notes. So jump right into it. So the economy. So Latin America's economy, we're going to kind of break it down and figure out what the most important aspects of it are. So agriculture is like the number one thing in Latin America's economy. They make a lot of money from exports. Remember, exports are things that you send out of the country. So there's three main exports that they are known for, and that's bananas, coffee, and sugarcane. All three things they send worldwide. They send to every part of the world. They produce a large amount of the world's bananas and produce. They're known for their coffee. It grows very well in their climate and the altitude at which the places are at, like Ecuador and Peru and places like that. They are able to grow very, very good coffee and sugarcane. And that's what the Caribbean is really known for, is their sugarcane production. We talked about how the slave trade existed during the discovery of the New World. Shortly after the discovery is when the slave trade started from Africa. And that was the main reason that slaves were brought to the New World at the time, was to work on these sugarcane plantations. We'll talk more about that in a slide or two. Latifundia, this is a large farm that's owned by a corporation. Minifundia is a small farm owned by either very wealthy individuals and or the government. And the government kind of they own the farm land, but they contract out every season a different farmer to work that land. Okay, so latifundia are like big corporate farms, and minifundia are smaller, privately owned or government rented farms. Okay, the way that I remember it is L, large, mini, small. That's how you can remember the difference between the two. Okay. Okay, so industry, most are developing countries. A lot of the countries in Latin America they're not considered third world anymore. They're like second world countries, and they're developing very quickly, might I add. And some places are getting to the point where they're almost first world. They're just as modernized as parts of Europe or parts of the United States and Canada. The service industry is starting to grow. That's one of the things that kind of puts you into that top tier, is you're not just relying on manufacturing or agriculture. You're actually providing services. They're starting to move towards telecommunications. They're developing, their internet grids, their phone lines, and all that telecommunication stuff. For the longest time, they did not have the internet and phone line capabilities that we have here in the United States, or it's available in Europe. And so they've been moving towards that. Limits to growth. So these are two things that have limited their growth over the past couple of years. And one of those things is completely out of their control, and that's physical barriers. So if you are an insular or island country, right? Say you're a Caribbean island, you cannot make your island any bigger. So you only have as much space that's available to you. So they can't physically grow their country any bigger. So it's really hard for them to bring in big corporations to build factories or to build big new industries because they don't have the space. And then in other parts, like in South America or even in Mexico, they have physical barriers because of the terrain or the climate, right? There might be a desert, there might be mountains, there might be a rainforest, there might be some kind of physical barrier that limits their ability to expand or to grow anymore. The second one is political instability. Like we talked about in the notes last week, some of these countries have a history of coming from dictatorships, and that transition from being in a totalitarian dictatorship to a free market democratic society is a big transition, and that there's a lot of instability in that. You're going from like really, really, really strict to a lot more open and free, and that allows people to kind of trip up and make mistakes, and have government leaders make mistakes and heads of industry make mistakes, and it leads to instability in the economy and in the laws that are in that country. Maquiladoras, these are foreign-owned factories. These are very popular in Latin America. Maquiladoras, pretty much it just means that there's a foreign country that has built a factory in a country in Latin America. So I'll give you an example. So like Ford. Ford has plants in Mexico and they make cars there. They make the steel there, they assemble the car, then they ship the car, not completely finished, but like 95% finished. And then they send it to the United States and then they finish assembling it in the United States and then they sell it. So there are people that work at these maquiladoras and they build them in these like economic zones. And so what it means is that if you work at one of these maquiladoras, you get paid significantly more than if you work outside of that economic zone. But even if you are, say, you're from Mexico, you work at the Ford plant in one of these maquiladoras in the economic zone, you're still making like $10 less than an American car worker. So Ford can pay people less to build their cars in Mexico than they can in the States, but they can still pay them significantly more than they would be paid if they were just working anywhere else. Does that make sense? So maquiladora is very, very popular in Latin America. The other thing, this is the number one industry in Latin America, and it's tourism. And this has been hit really hard due to COVID, but there are tons of places you can go in Latin America on vacation and be a tourist at. And so there's people from the US, Canada, Europe, Asia, people from all over the world go to Latin America and visit some of these tourist destinations. So the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, very popular place. They have lots of resorts, lots of really nice hotels. The Caribbean islands on cruise ships, people go on cruises. The cruise ships stop in these islands. You go and visit it. It's really cool because normally when you go on vacation, like if you're going to Italy, you get on a plane, you fly to Italy, you get off, you stay in Italy the entire time. If you're going to Australia, you fly to Australia, you get off the plane, you stay in Australia the whole time. If you go to the Caribbean, you're going to a different country every day for like a week. And, you know, each country has a different language and different culture and different ethnicity. And there's different vibes and there's different styles and there's different things to do. And so the Caribbean islands are a really popular tourist destination. Brazil, people travel to Brazil to go see the Amazon rainforest. They go there to see the Redeemer in Rio, the big statue, and see all that. They go to Sao Paulo because it's a very big city. There's lots of museums, entertainment, and nightlife, and all that. So people go to Brazil. And then Costa Rica. This is a very popular place people go to visit. It's in Central America. Very, very beautiful. Has some of the best beaches in the world. And it's very inexpensive to travel there. There's when you exchange your currency into the currency that they use in Costa Rica, a dollar is worth like $8 in Costa Rica. So if you take $10, that's $80 in Costa Rica. So you can go there with not a lot of money and do quite a lot because the exchange rate is really favorable for tourists. So they go to Costa Rica. Also, a lot of people retire and they move to Costa Rica. But tourism, number one industry. And at the end, I will show you guys some pictures of these places. Okay. So transportation, communication. So they have the Pan American Highway. This highway goes from, well, yep, you can see it. It's in the United States. It crosses the Mexican border and goes all the way down to Mexico City. Also goes to Laredo, Texas. So you can go into Arizona or Texas. And both of these Pan American highways connect and go all the way through Central America into South America and down the west coast of South America. So hypothetically, you could drive from Laredo, Texas, all the way to the very southern tip of South America. It would just take you like 2.5 weeks to do, but you could do it all in a car or motorcycle or truck or whatever. So it goes from Mexico to Chile. The news. So in Latin America, they still rely on print news a lot. Also radio and television. More people are starting to use cell phones now. Like, remember I said telecommunications is starting to increase. People are starting to get cell phones now. They're starting to have Wi-Fi and internet and data and all that, which they hadn't had 10 years ago. They didn't have any of that. And now they are. And phones are becoming cheaper now. I mean, I don't know. You guys don't recall probably, but you remember, maybe your parents do. You could ask them about it. But back in the day, you used to be able to get a phone for free. Like, you would get a cell phone plan. You would sign a 2-year contract. You get your contract, and they'd be like, here you go. Here's a flip phone or slidey phone or some Android whatever phone, and it's completely free, right? It costs you $0. that's starting to happen there now. So people are starting to be able to get cell phones. You guys don't recall it, but they're the flip phones, the phones that have full keyboards, and you go like click, 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 click. Like that's what I used to have when I was in high school. Um, I'm dating myself, but you guys get the idea. So people are starting to get cell phones now, and now they're starting to get their news that way. But for a lot of the population, they're still getting their news from television, radio, or newspaper. Okay. Computers are becoming more accessible. You're starting to see more computers at home in Latin America. Before, it used to be like 1 out of every 10 people had a computer. Now it's more like 6 out of 10 people have a computer. And that's very important because computers allow people to do things, stuff that you probably don't think of, but like you can pay bills over the computer. You can sign legal documents. You can read news. You can type up documents, letters. You can do schooling on it. As you guys know, we're doing e-learning right now. So computers give people a lot of flexibility, and you can take advantage of that technology, and it benefits your life greatly if you have it. And if you don't, there's still a way to do it. It's just more arduous and a longer process to get done. Okay. So managing resources, this is a big thing for Latin America. They have the Amazon rainforest. The Amazon rainforest is the single most important natural thing that helps us combat climate change. The Amazon rainforest absorbs 70% of the world's carbon. That is a lot, okay? Like a ton. It's almost 2/3. It absorbs 2/3 of the world's carbon dioxide that we emit into the air through carbon gas emissions, just from humans breathing, right? We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. The Amazon rainforest absorbs most of it. 20% of the Amazon rainforest has been destroyed in just the past 50 years. This increases global warming. A lot of scientists believe the destruction in the Amazon rainforest, this 20%, is about 90% the main reason that we're seeing an increase in global warming and climate change. And some of the things that have been happening there is deforestation. So they have slash and burn agriculture. So they cut down the trees for like maybe an acre or 3 acres or whatever, and then they burn the stumps out and they burn all the undergrowth, and then they turn that soil and they farm there. And we know that farming produces methane. We know that cutting up the trees ruins the carbon dioxide, that respiration, the ability of trees to absorb carbon and then turn it into oxygen. We know that that process is very damaging to the environment. They are doing it. They're building roads through the Amazon rainforest. They're building houses. They're trying to expand the area in which people can live, and that requires cutting down parts of the rainforest to do. So now they're starting to shift into what we call a sustainable development model, which is where you try to grow economically and technologically, but you try to do so without depleting your resources. So for Latin America, specifically in South America, they're trying to grow economically and technologically while not destroying the rainforest. And this is very, very difficult to do. It's a delicate process, but it's a very important one. And so that's something that they are working on. And then also in Latin America, we know that since they're in the Caribbean and they're in the Atlantic and in the Pacific, they get lots of hurricanes and storms there. So they use satellites to view from outer space to look at those storm and weather patterns develop on radar to help predict and track hurricanes that are developing in the Caribbean. And they're very good at it. I mean, you can see all the storms that have made landfall this year in the United States. They started in Latin America, and there are oceans and seas, and they're able to say, hey, you know what, this is a tropical storm here, but once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to turn to a Category 4, and it's going to hit Texas or Louisiana or whatever. So they use satellites to track that. Reforestation, these are laws to protect and replant the rainforest. They require either like tree quotas. So like if you're a construction company and you're building something and you have to cut down trees, they actually send someone out from the government surveyor's office and they count how many trees are on the property. And they ask you how many of them you're going to have to cut down. And then you're expected to tell them, and then they hold you to that number. So if you cut down 35 trees, then you have to replant 35 trees on that property, or you have to pay a fine per 35 trees. So the fine might be $200 a tree. You do that 35 times 200, and you can figure out really quick that that's like a lot of money. It's like $7,000. So then most people don't want to pay a $7,000 fine. So then they're going to find a way to build what they were going to build there without cutting down 35 trees. And that protects the environment and the rainforest. Ecotourism, these are environmentally friendly vacations. These are becoming more popular amongst tourists. This is stuff like hiking, kayaking, horseback riding, bird watching, animal tours, stuff that allows the environment to stay the same, but still entertains people and allows them to earn money through tourism to provide an environmentally friendly way of seeing their environment. And then these are pictures of the places, the Yucatan Peninsula. So this is in Mexico. This is more pictures of it. This is some of the Caribbean islands. This is South America. Okay, this is Rio, Sao Paulo. These are pictures from the rainforest. And then this is Costa Rica. You can see they have beautiful beaches in the back, but still rainforest. You can go boating, kayaking, rafting, stay in these awesome eco hotels, go zip lining. You could rent out these tree stands. There's all kinds of cool things you can do. And these are pictures of the rainforest. So here, I'm going to slide this down here. This is what the rainforest, the green is the rainforest, okay, the trees. This is what it looked like in 1950. This is what it looks like in 2020. The green is the trees. So you can see how much of it's been destroyed. So just in the past 20 years, over 20% of the rainforest has been destroyed. And this is what the slash and burn looks like before they burn everything. And then once they burn everything, this is all just like field. And then they turn the soil and they plant crops there and they try to farm. But the thing is, when you burn like that, you're destroying some of the soil, depleting it of the nutrients. And you're actually burning out the water that's built up in the ground as well. So when you plant crops, the roots have a harder time. It's not a good thing to do. Turning the soil is, but it's a big process. It's very drastic for the soil to go from being for tree roots to being for loose roots of crops. Okay, so that's it for the notes. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. Bye, everyone.